Hello. Bad lighting. Okay. So I'm waiting for Greg. I'm writing hello from an office in Viking Valley. I'm gonna try a better background, but figure it out later. I'll write some information though. If you say where you're from and temperature, because everybody asks that. Gudvangen, Norway. Let's see. At vikingvalley.no or www.vikingvalley.no. I think it's com actually. To see what it looks like when the sun's out. Temperature is 72 there in Texas. I put my phone in the other room. It's not that cold here yet. We have snow, but it's in the mountains. Hello, Charlotte. And Karin Bium. On Instagram. How is your week going? Hey, Tufa's here too. Tufa, you can come play with me. Put on your Viking clothes. We're gonna come play. I need to finish this, by the way. Who has unfinished Viking clothes? It can't just be me. Greg will hopefully be coming by soon. He's usually like right on time, and then he did promise to tell a story. He's coming back later this evening. We're going to watch Kelly's Heroes. Does anybody know what that movie is? Not very Viking at all, but very good. So we're having some nostalgic moments. Hey, Heidi. Heidi Lisa. Han fin lørdags til deg og. Bruna was here yesterday. He just left. He is on his way to you in the morning. Your brother. And apparently he sold some needles in the store, so that was good. I don't have any of his needles to show, but I do have some other stuff to show you. Books. With some stories. He is on Instagram. Is Wolf Slayer's Forge. I just have to check. So I get his Instagram correctly. He has been building a forge at home. Let's see. Wolf Slayer Forge, yeah, is him. Or Greg.Weller.31. Some. Carl is here too, but I'm not going to throw him under the bus for another week. We'll let him breathe a little bit because he doesn't do YouTube really. So to have him out at all last week was kind of a... I don't think he had any choice. I think Greg and I kind of insisted. So Turin is here. Hello, Turin. And Roxy with Ducks. You guys are going to have to keep me entertained. If it's just me, I'm going to need some help. Charlotte and, of course, Tufa. 11 in Suffolk. Cool. Doro's here. Andrea is here. Good morning from Minnesota. So we've been having a Minnesota week, by the way, not very Viking related at all. I finally got around to watching the Fargo TV series, and it's like it's like listening to myself on YouTube because apparently they nail the dialect big time. We will have story time. Greg will show up. If not, I will grab a flipping book off the shelf and read it to you with my Minnesota dialect. It's Misty here in Gudvangen as well as Charlotte says it's in Bergen as well. And Perut is here. But what I did have, and Maniac Cat, that's a new one. So we are on a somewhat soft lockdown in Norway, as we'll call it. It due to the coronavirus spiking. We do not have any in Gudvangen. There's, I think, one case in the whole county, and that person doesn't actually live in the county. It's just a statistic because their residence is here. So that's good. But in the eastern part of Norway, where I actually live, it is higher. So I have been here for a week extra. And I will probably be here next week as well. So that because we're supposed to restrict the amount of driving we do back and forth between the counties, although we still can. Anybody who is working at least in the Oslo area, the whole greater Oslo area, are very much encouraged to do home office if possible. The high schools and the junior high, I guess you could call it, those are in the greater Oslo area. Those are going to be closed for school but they will be teaching from Zoom or something, or Teams somewhere online. I think because a lot of teachers are now in quarantine, but the kids' school is still open, and they are still allowed to go and visit with their friends as long as they're in the same group cohort. So that'll be fun. But how is your quarantining going over there? Because my Netflix and Nalbinding time is increasing. But I didn't get very much done because it's been so dark. So here we are watching Netflix or something, and it's so dark out that I have to turn the light so you can see the computer better, and then I can't see my needle binding. So my hat, which I'm supposed to be done with, has a ways to go. This is the one in the picture. I don't know if you can see the stitches, but it's the Araboga Stitch. Do you want to see how it's done? If you can. The Arboga Stitch, if you haven't gotten a chance to look it up, I will write it down. You can find it as, I think it's called an other stitch. On newlocken.fi. But it's a little tricky. Nell says, I just got home from the 1980s, now some food and Nalbinding. You've been 1890s. You've been in the 1890s. That's good. How in the heck did you manage that? I want to know more. Yes, Charlotte, I'm glad that we're, she says, I'm glad you are safe. Stay home as much as I can too. Yep. I'm allowed to be here because it is a work thing. We've got animals to take care of, etc. But it's better to sit still than it is to drive back and forth. And I have Carl and keeping me company, and Greg is back and forth a bit because he doesn't live far away. Runa came by yesterday and we watched movies, but he's now going to north of Norway to visit his, be up by his family for this lockdown. It's not a lockdown. You can call it a lockdown light because we're not actually locked down. But I don't think it'll be anywhere near the same as last time, where you had like no movement on the road except for trucks, and then nobody could leave. You have to wear face mask on any public transportation or any place you are in Oslo where you cannot keep a distance. If you can maintain your distance, then it's okay to not have one on. We will have a story, but I wonder what he's going to write. Did anybody write on Facebook? I put one group, the needle binding group, if we had any story suggestions. But if you want to write down some suggestions for him, because I know he will be here, he's just fashionably late. That's kind of an okay thing. I will see. Where did you find I spammed everywhere, by the way. So out of curiosity, where did you find this link? Most of them, I think, come from the Nalbinding group or on Facebook. I can write that out. If you don't know what needle binding is, that's a really good one to check. Let's see. I think it's called Nalbinding with an A with a circle over it, but it's got like a brown bag with some needles on it. That one has probably the most activity. Everyone speaks English. You can write in whatever language you want, and they'll just click the translate button anyway. And you will almost get an immediately response to any question you have. Story of Odin's hanging. Good, good. Mirik is here. Hi, Topper Never Jantis. You have to check them out. Gosha, I think, is Mirik's niece, if I remember correctly. I can't remember how old she is, but she's quite young. She's still a student. I think she's a teenager, but she did some hand carving of a wax tablet. If you don't know what a wax tablet is, it's basically a wooden book with some carving on the front, and then on the inside, when you open it up, it's just a big chunk of wax here and a big chunk of wax there, and you can write on with a stick, and then you can soften the wax or melt it up and rewrite and kind of use it as like a Viking book. I don't know if it's Viking age or Roman age or whatever, but they're really kind of nice to have, and the closest thing we'd have to a book to use during Viking markets. But she did really cool hand carving. She's getting really good. You should check it out. I can't believe a kid did that. Julie Johnson wrote, I went to Frida and the dwarves to get her necklace. Which necklace is that? Karin Hollock is here. Good morning from Arizona. So do you want to see the Arboga stitch? This one is done over 4 loops. So if I do this way, maybe you can see it better. So as you're doing them, the loops will change direction. 2 of them are pointing this way. Let's see, that way. And then one of them is pointing this way. And then the one on the thumb. You can actually have 2 on your thumb. But this big one, my second to the last loop that I did, the one I just took off my thumb, you go this way. Oh, wait, towards you, but then you turn. And then these 2 that are going this way, you go through the right, through them, assuming you're right-handed. So you get those 2 there. Then you go over the one that you still have on your thumb, and then you go under that one and that one. It would help if I picked up a stitch first, though, from previous row. So it's backwards through this one, turn and go to the right through those 2, and then under that one and that one. If you haven't needle bound before, a big tip where people usually go wrong, before you pull the needle through, make sure it's sitting behind your thumb. Put this finger on your thumb and then pull it through and down towards you, assuming this is towards you. I have something called lazy man's thread, which is too much thread. Like that. Ta-ta-da. But the reason it goes wrong for most people that are just starting out is because they tend to not hold it down or lock it, so the needle will want to jump and then the yarn will go forward. And all of a sudden it's tying a knot here and you need to force it to stay behind your thumb. So when they pull the yarn through, they didn't realize that it jumped. And then it looks like a big knot, so tip. But this isn't a good stitch to start with. But if you can do the dollar no stitch, this is pretty much next line. If anyone's talked about Norse music and or instruments, I would be all ears. Oh, I bet we could. I would like to know more about a Drumdamin song. I'm assuming Drumdamin is like Drumdamin. Drumdamin, yeah. Or the Drumdamin. The Drumdamin. Anyway, it would mean my dream if I did that right. That's how it would. Drumdamin could be Swedish too. But did you see last week when you guys somebody told Carl he had a Swedish dialect? That was the best. If you didn't catch it, the best way to insult a Norwegian is to call them Swedish. So I highly recommend it. It could be Old Norse, yeah. I am not Norwegian, I am Minnesotan, but I do speak Norwegian, and I speak Swedish, and I understand Danish, and I used to speak Spanish. Hello, RK Hagman, and hello, Yurdis Neff, welcome back. Yeah, that was hilarious. Oh my God, that's no tip to the wise. If you ever want to piss off a Norwegian, which is fun, then tell them they're Swedish. Yeah, I guess you could probably do the same thing with the Swede. Tell them they're Norwegian or something. So I have books to show you. This one is actually a German one, but this one's been translated to English. I think it's the right way around for you guys. Anyway, I can't tell, but it's needle binding or knoll binding. What in the world is that? And I think in German it's called Was ist das? But this one is by Ulrike Klassen-Büttner, if I'm not butchering your name. And if you want to do the history of needle binding, then this is good. But it also has a lot of how-to. So this book, if I find, it even has Billum. Has anybody seen Billum? It is a looping technique, but it's mostly found. Ann Decker's going to kill me because Ann Decker knows her textiles. But Australia has them, and I believe Africa also has Billum. But it's looping and overlaps with crochet or overlaps with null binding. I think it is technically null binding. So the thing is with this book also, this is why it's good to have a couple. Oh, this is Billum. She has more photos. Hello, Susan. Yep, this is a good book. This is the best one history-wise. But it's also very good. There's actually 2 books I would strongly recommend, and I'll get back to it in a minute. These 2. May and Knoll, in English it's called With One Needle. But they both overlap and they both have differences. So this one has, if I can find the page, further in with the instructions. There we go. Various stitches and needle binding instructions. Okay. Well, anyway, I forget where the list is where it shows, but oh, it even tells you how to make a needle. How do I make a needle? You could take a popsicle stick as an easy way to do it. Like that kind of a thing. I don't know if that's a popsicle stick, but it would have the same shape. Make a little hole in it first and then polish it so it fits to whatever your need is, however pointy or rounded you want. Another one you could use is chopsticks. That's more round though and not as flat. I personally prefer a flat needle or a flatter needle, maybe a flat needle with a bend. But some people absolutely love round kneaded tools. So she teaches the Oslo Stitch, which is a very good beginning stitch. But if it's not thick enough for you, then you want to try the Mammen one, which is one more over. The Oslo stitches worked around 2 thumbs, which makes it kind of easy. But if your yarn is not super fat or thick, you could find out when you start brand new that it's quite loose. So then you could try a thicker one. Then there's the York stitch, which is like the Oslo stitch, but one mistake differently. It is also, because of that mistake, it makes it a much looser loop. And the start chain twists like mad, but it's actually easier than the Oslo. It's just the twisting that makes it a pain in the butt to learn. She also covers the Corgan and the Mammen stitch. This actually has a difference. Most people, a lot of places just say Mammen and not Corgan, but there actually is a difference between the two. And that is the way you connect when you do we're getting more needle binding today until Greg shows up. Anyway, to do the Mammen stitch, you would only connect to one new stitch below. To do the Corgan, you one new and one old. That's the difference between those two. Otherwise, it's the same stitch, but this book covers that. It also covers the Dolby Stitch. And I think that is a turning stitch or a Russian stitch, I forget. These are also on New Lock and Tut's page. So she covers a couple of different kinds of different methods, because the Dolby Stitch and the Oslo Stitch is a Finnish family stitch. York Stitch, I think, is considered another stitch or turn, and then Dolby is another different type of family. So you're seeing different ways of making stitches. Then she has patterns. Those are quite cool. They're a little bit like the way I make my slipper ones. It's hard to do patterns in needle binding, and that is because you can't count the amount of stitches, and everybody's gauge and stitch is different. But you can count the amount of centimeters, for example. She has little practical objects. How to make mittens. This is kind of cool. That thing there where she does. The Snow White hat and adult version without brim with an embroidered pattern. So that is embroidered on top of it, which is quite cool. And then she has striping. She's even made a hat for her cat. It's very important. Mittens. That's a cute picture. Yeah, here she's got her construction of her socks. This one you've seen on Pinterest, I'm sure, this picture anyway. There are a gazillion different ways to make socks. This is how I make mine, where the heel comes after. But you can also do this way and then pick up and go around. Or you can make this like finger tongue that goes down to your heel and then slowly decrease that way. And then, yeah. I have a hard time making socks that way, that fit nice. But others, on the other hand, would say the exact opposite. Here, somebody had a lot of time on their hands and made a whole tunic-y kind of dress thing. These ones you've seen on Pinterest all over the place, these two. This one as well, Braided Edge. Not sure if she really goes into details to how to do that. Oh, she's got some stuff. Yeah, this is Amy Vandervorst, just was going to say. These are also on Pinterest too, but these are Amy's. This is a circle vest. And I don't know if she's actually telling you how to make these or if she's just showing you what you can make with them. A lot of these images look familiar. But anyway, if you want, I think the first half of the book, yeah, probably about this much anyway, is about history and background, which makes it a really good one for that. Then my other favorite is Mervi Pasanen's book, With One Needle or Manual. See what you're writing first. Let's see, Julie Johnson. However, they got to Seattle. My Swedish grandfather was thrilled to marry a Norwegian. Same traditions and food went missing from the old country. It is quite similar. Don't tell him I said that. I started out visiting Sweden and learning Swedish, and then I met a Norwegian, and that's how I ended up in Norway. So I'm nicer to the Swedes. Turin says she has both those books. They're amazing. Yeah, if you get two, those are really good for total complete things. Regina says, "Oh, I have that book somewhere. Somewhere. It should be on your coffee table, woman." Julie says, "Fantastic books. They have been on your list." Yeah, a lot of them, if you go to Amazon, they'll ask people who bought this one as well. And they're right. I can show you what the Dollarna stitch is. This is the Dollarna stitch. I might be doing it slightly different than some, but the difference isn't too big. It's the connection I think I do differently than maybe Anne. This one is the same, but you can't see it so much because of the yarn. But I like when I have something like multicolored yarn, it looks like it blends more with that stitch. So with this kind of yarn, I would tend to use this kind of stitch. I tried it on this one, but it doesn't really feature the stitch well, in my opinion. But to do the Dollarna stitch, I see if I can find a fatter yarn here or something that's a bit easier to see. I would definitely go with something thicker than this. Let's see. I can get a piece of thread off. Don't need lazy man yarn for this. Let's see. So it depends on how you start. By the way, if you want to know how I start, this is how I do it. There's a bazillion ways to start. It doesn't matter how you start. If it's not good, you can just cut it off because it's a knot. It's not going to go anywhere. And then you can lie and tell everybody that it was a beautiful start from the beginning. Anyhow, I make a knot, pretzel knot. Let's see, maybe, yeah, pretzel knot, so that the long yarn points down on your thumb, and then you push all the knot crap behind. So, but I need 2 loops for this, so, and I only have 1 loop on my thumb, so I will go under everything, lock, and pull it through. Now I have 2. But the new one is always under the old one. So you're starting pretty much just like Oslo. Let's see. But for Dollarna, you're taking your old loop from the underside off and leave it on your thumb, twist, and then you go under those 2, just as if you would Oslo, and then you pull it through. Did I do that wrong? Wait a minute. Maybe I did. Nope, I didn't. So then there's your old loop. I did do it wrong. Don't listen to me. Let's do it again this way then. Okay, so I have my new one and old loop. Let's see. Take that one and go away. That was Oslo Stitch I showed you. I suck. The first one was Oslo. Ignore me. Dollarna. You go away with the old loop, just like you did before, but you go under this bottom loop, not this way through. I lied. You go under this one and under your thumb thread. Put your finger back on and pull it through. It's a good screw up because it can show you that it literally is one mistake from Oslo anyway. Yeah, so now you have your old loop is behind your thumb. Usually pointing like this way instead of this way, and you want to take the one, it looks like there's 2. You want to take the one on the left. So for this one, now that it's set up that way, I would go that way through and then go under that one and under the yarn. Pull through. That's Dollarna. Yeah. Some people go through both of these on the back. I think that's what Anne does, and that's not wrong. It's just a different way. So that one's really quick, but you can find, I'll write that one down, which is an, I think it's qualified as another. Right. Anyway, that's a good one to learn, but a little bit thicker yarn, maybe not as thick as you need for Oslo, but you make little swatches and see what you like. And don't judge what you get until you have at least 3 rows, because the first row is always going to be loose. The first row is always going to be loose because your yarn is only bound, your loops are only bound this way and this way. When you have 2 rows, it's bound this way, and then up. When you have 3 rows, then it is now, the middle row is bound side to side and top to bottom. And the middle row would be then how big your gauge actually is. So always make a little test loop. So this one, another reason why these two are good to have, because this one covers all the finished stitches. This one has things like Dolby in it and York. So that's one big difference right there. She has gorgeous pictures, and she does a lot of things in finish, well, all the finished stitches, but mostly finish 2+2, which is my favorite. It might be not the one that she does all the time, but that's the one I notice the most out of her work, and I'm jealous as hell. She has an amazing gauge. Everything looks so nice and neat and even. And she's a really nice person. She also does tablet weaving and stuff. So these are the stitches she will show. Finish 2+2. F2, that's your connection. Finish 2+2 F1, and a picture of what it looks like when it's on your thumb. And she shows more versions. She has Mommen and different versions of Finish 2+2. Finish 2+3, which is just thicker, but she also shows what the braided edge is, and the braided edge means that your, let's see, if I put this back on, they'll call it a braided edge, they could, or a plaited edge. If you have your work on your thumb, but normally with, turn it this way again, normally you'll go under the thumb loop and this one. And if you do that, it's like the Oslo stitch. But if you do one little difference, you do your same stitch the same way you normally do, but you go over this thread, it will create something called a braided edge on the back side. And it just basically looks a little bit more woven. So that's what that is. And you can do that with any one of your stitches. Just do that one little change, and then it shows more on the back side, I think, than the front side. I shouldn't have shut the book. Now I lost my spot. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so then she's got this one called the braided edge. If you can see, you can maybe, if you analyze this one next to the Mommen stitch, you'll see the difference better. She also has Oslo. This is Oslo with the braided edge. This is Oslo with the normal one, I think, if I'm reading that correctly backwards on my screen. It's a slight difference, but it's the same stitch basically. And with 1+3, so they get tighter. But so she does a lot of the, well, there's a good example. Nice. She does a lot of those. And then she'll show you how to do a spiral. One way, there's quite a few ways to do a spiral. She has patterns in here too. Oh, she does have Russian strings in, Russian stitch in there. It's the way you do the knots that define what kind of family it is. Here she shows you how you can create your own stitch. Lag ditt eget sting, in English that would mean make your own stitch. She does have this book in English. How to make a thumb on a mitten. How to do the heel of the sock. She does the heel the way I do, but she also does, I think she does, yeah. This is the way I do my heels. She's got little patterns. These are where you increase and where you decrease. This one starts from toe up. Here's another version where you start toe this way, but you make that tongue thing. This is your toe. This is your heel. You decrease. How to measure. Very important because it's very difficult to make socks that don't go on your own feet. Mittens. Hats with a little point on the top and hats with flat on the top. I think she starts both of those at the top. stripes and embroidery. Her pictures are amazing. There's some more embroidery. That braided or cable type edge, different kinds of that, adding fringe, and you can use tablet weaving into that. I like that she mixes the two because she's also a damn good tablet weaver and has books on that as well. And she does weaving. But you might recognize some of these on Pinterest and stuff. She has such nice even stitches. Striped mittens. I don't want to show all her stuff, but if you're wondering who Mervy is, that's Mervy. Shawl, scarf. Let's see. And a pattern. She has really good taste in yarn too, I've noticed. Shawl. This is cute too. Looks a lot like the pussy hat for these election times. Not going to say any more about that, but things are very exciting in my country back home right now. Norway's watching. She had another fun thing in here too. This is a dark photo, so I don't know how if you can see she's got like a twisted fringe. That is really cool. But the whole first chunk of her book also. She has another thing that's kind of cool. With this one is she has different ways to start. It does show how to splice the yarn too. What I like on this one, and as far as I know, Ulrika might have it in her book as well. I didn't look too closely, but she starts the same way I do. One of them, it's called a knotted start or knut to start. This is the way I just showed you how to start. She shows different ways to start, but she has the one that I do. It's not original to me. I don't know where the heck I found it. Threading the needle. She also has a start that looks like a flat start. If you don't work off of your thumb, which is possible, she has that as well. I like to work off my thumb because my work gets more even. As if I didn't work off my thumb, I'd have a hard time making all my stitches look even. It's not impossible. It's just a personal preference. This one's called Museør to start, which means mouse ear start. That's kind of cool. I got to say, I haven't tried that. Oh, yes, I have. That's a good one to start with for dollar. The traditional start. Not my favorite, but somebody likes it. Let's see. Turning after the first row. Is she actually working flat there? No, I think that's going, it's going around and around when you start with a chain and then you go around instead of one loop and go in a circle. That one has a turn off first row. How to increase and decrease is good. How to add other colors. Anyway, this one's really good. When I found out she was in Tønsberg one year when I was, then I had to go and say hi to her because we've overlapped so much on Facebook. It's fun to put a face to the name. We compared needle binding injuries. She has a similar needle binding injury. The way you bind will have a different effect on your thumb or not. Some people, like Virginia, if you remember, she binds so high up here, and then she pulls it so tight that she'll actually have a little indent on her thumb for a while when she's done. I bind with a yarn down here, so I don't have that issue. It might get a little tighter here, but I have a tendency to stab my thumb. Every time I work the yarn through, I rub my thumb there, so I have a callus. And Marvy's got one too, so we have the same needle binding injury. Some people will get it down here, some I have to see. I'll catch up on chat now. Let's see. Roxy says she was doing the dollar stitch the other day, but made the mistake and did it with also having a thumb loop on it as well. It still turned out all right, a bit tighter than normal. Yeah, it's not wrong. It just might not actually be called dollarna. But the Arboga stitch is a little like the dollarna stitch. So maybe we're doing something closer to that. The Arboga stitch, no, I'm thinking of Oslo. Anyway, But yeah, it doesn't matter what you do, but whatever you do, do the same thing over and over again, and then you can find out what the stitch is called. There's got to be, like I said, at least 10,000 ways to make a knot, and however way you do it, if you do the same thing over and over and again, it will create a pattern. And then later you can figure out what it's called. I think we even have one called the Stormy Stitch, because there was one lady, she ended up creating a Facebook group anyway, but a lady from the United States, she did something really wrong, but it looked cool. And they couldn't figure out what it was called, so they just gave it a name. There's another one, I think Maria Stitch or Marianne Stitch. So something like that. It doesn't really matter what you do as long as you're tying knots over and over again. Heidi, denne boka skal du kjøpe deg. Tell Rune that you want that book for Christmas, and I will help him find it for you. She wants to buy that book, she said. We do have some of them in the shop. I think they're on reorder here. This one might be a little tricky. But yeah, it's in English now. No, they're in English. All of them are in English, so you can probably order them on Amazon or something too. But if not, let me know, and if we have them in the shop, we can figure something out here. We still don't have the web shop up. There's some snag or something, but it's still possible to do things. We can still, I can write my email. If you write that email, that's my work email, then I can forward any requests to the shop to the right person, because we're on Corona hours now. Peruta said she's working on tablet Wraith right now. Oh, cool. That I want to see. I saw you made a dress or a skirt. That looks so cool. I need one. Nell wrote the book that is at least double as thick as the original Finnish one. Is this, I was wondering, because this one originally came out in Finnish, and then it was translated to Norwegian by Katja Reykjavik, who was Kolheim in the time, and now it's been translated to English. But is it because your words are like this long and our words are like this long? Is that why the book is double thick in Norwegian? Curious. I think it's actually slightly thinner than this one, is slightly thinner than the German one too. They don't know. Trying to find With One Needle online. Where's the place to buy it? I think you can with one. If you can't find it anyway, write the store. Link or. I'll find it out for you. If you can't find the With One Needle, let me know, and I'll find, either if I send you a link or I will, if we have it in the shop, we can figure something out there too. But the With One Needle would be the English one. Amazon is sold out. Okay. Well, we could also ask Mary herself if she has some. Turin writes, I have both in English and bought them on Amazon. Okay. They might just be running out pretty fast, because the important thing with this one is, one, the Viking community is fun, but two, bring attention to needle binding. Yeah, it was a dying craft for a while, and it's not anymore. It's considered healthy. Do you recognize these? They look a little dirty when I eat next to them. But anyway, these are just some of the gazillion things that Maria Lind Hale has. I'll write that. Okay. She has ebooks somewhere, so you can actually download these in e-format, so you don't have to have the little, they're just, these things are quite cool because they're focused. It's learning one thing at a time and focusing on just one thing. And she sells them too cheap, in my opinion. She needs to sell them for more. This is a sweater. It is a pattern. And this one is in Danish, but she has them in English as well. And as far as I know, she's got them in Spanish now too. She has everybody helping translate. Some of them I've translated. This one says Nalbinding, which is a troya or a sweater, and is how to. So this is what you do. She'll tell you how to start. She has a blog with a bunch of Christmas patterns on it and stuff that we've all been donating to. And everybody writes patterns a little differently. Here she makes the arm loops like I do. And then how to make it to the neck. Up to the top. So that one is a good one. She has one for Christmas. I'm pretty sure she has more than just Christmas 2012. These are just ones that we have. She says how to start a spiral one way. Christmas balls. And little Christmas baskets. I should find that website where we've all been donating to. I can do that. You can actually participate in that project because there's a Christmas calendar. Nalbinding Advent calendar. Let's see. This one. This one's, oh, mine are on the front. So this is the Advent calendar. If you go to that one and you flip through there, you'll see lots of different Christmas ones. There may be only 4 patterns sometimes, one for each Sunday in Advent, or there's, I think, 1 or 2 years where there's actually 24 patterns, which is kind of fun. These can be applied to crochet because you don't, if you crochet and you don't know how to needle bind yet, you can apply them to crochet because it's referred to usually in measurement and thickness. You just have to control your gauge. So if it says make a chain, that's 15 centimeters, make a chain, that's 15 centimeters. Doesn't matter how many stitches you need. Ah, you're following Marie on Instagram. Good. She's really nice. One of these days I will actually meet her, but I've been talking to her for God knows how many years now. Wrist warmers, how to do it. Hats. Mittens. Luffer in Danish, I like that. But these are really good for learning one thing at a time. This one I haven't really flipped through too much. This is in Swedish. She goes over different stitches. I don't know if this one, but these ones you'll see pictures like this that look familiar on Pinterest. Different ways of making socks. This one is, it says Västmanlands Hemslöjdsförbundet, so it's basically a hobby club. Mittens. You can also make needle binding patterns to sewing patterns as long as your needle binding fits within this shape. Then you're good. She shows different kind of start methods and different stitches. Here's some stitches, but what she calls them, I don't know. Some of them just refer to them by code, and some refer to them by name. It doesn't matter as long as there's more variations, etc. This one's okay though. Different kind of needles. You can have, well, she only shows one needle here though, but basically she's going a thickness and a width and an eye size. I noticed a lot of needle binding needles have really teeny tiny eye holes, and that's great if you're working with teeny tiny yarn. But if you want any thickness in your yarn, you might want to consider that the eye hole is big enough to get your yarn through once or twice. Look at this one with the hole in the middle. Maria's thought she found an idea of where that might work, because basically this needle could be pushed through this way or this way, so you could back your needle out of a stitch. We're still trying to find a good use for that yet, but I think Maria found one once. Harma pinning. The ups and downs of null binding, or the what, the why, and the how. So she's got like hats and things. I didn't know this one existed until we had it in the library here, but she's shows it mostly with loops. Different starts. I do like that she actually took the time to outline the yarn so that you can see how things look. This one goes through the codes. Where is it? She has Hansen's notations anyway, the Hansen's last notations, and put them into print. This one is written in Danish. She puts Danish on one side and English on the other. If you can read Danish, it's not bad. If you can't read Danish, you're going to struggle because the English isn't translated very well, I'm sorry to say. But she's very concentrated on these types. So she writes her stitches like that and does not use names. Like Oslo is unfamiliar to her. So this is not a beginning friendly book, but she's got some things you can focus on making and things you can try. She does sweaters. She needle binds flat, which means she doesn't use her thumb. So this is also a bit tricky for people to catch on to. But if you like to work flat, then this would be just fine. Another thing is she can combine knit and crochet with her needle binding. But there you'll see she refers to stitches like that. So if this is an easier code for you to read, then not bad. But this is not for the weak of heart. So it's got a lot of things in there, but I'd go with the other ones. That's all I'm going to say about that. No. So then there's a bunch of stuff online you can find too. There's more books available, but that's the ones that we have in the library as far as I know of. I haven't written one yet. I should do that, but I want a whole list of patterns first. The Advent calendar is really cool, and there is a Facebook group for the Advent calendar. I will see if I can find that really quickly. Eula calendar. See if I can find it. Okay. I will find it on there somewhere anyway. Eula calendar. Eula calendar basically means, maybe she calls it Advent calendar. She does. She will let you in that group if you want to help make and participate by contributing a pattern. Yeah, this is one for 2016, but there's got to be something close. Anyway, so if you want to contribute to a pattern, she'll let you help. But if you just kind of want to see what's going on in the group, nope, then you can't be in there. But it is really fun when people can inspire others with patterns. So I'll put in like 1 or 2 a year. I have to make some now. I don't know what I'll do yet. I have to think because we need to get that one printed. And then Ava Bolander puts it into web format. And Ava Bolander, because then we have Peggy Solomon, who will translate them to German. I will translate them to English. Virginia is translating them to Spanish. Lots of fun. It's a huge thing. So you should check that one out, definitely. There's quite a few fun things on there. But everybody writes their patterns differently. So the way I write mine, the way Maria writes hers, they're a little different. But they're good to see. Let's see what else Sue wrote here. Nell says, it looks like you have the very nice printing paper on your book. Thank you. This one this has nothing to do with needle binding, but I like this book the way it's made. It's about weaving, warp weighted looms and all kinds of looms. Let's see. Like that. But this one is nice paper, and it looks like the binder's been ripped off, but it hasn't. But it makes it so that when you use the book, it can stay nice. Speaking of nice paper on books. Slipper pattern. Yeah, there was one that had like a slipper pattern, and it's I think these two do. Hers does anyway, and it's similar to what I did on my stitch along. Mine are all on Instagram for now, and they are free on Instagram for now because basically I'm using you as little test subjects. So one day I'll have them in print or something, but at least I'll know they'll work because you've all tried them for me. This is the one that she had in needle binding. What in the world is that? And that's similar to the way I do mine. I just do mine differently at the bottom, but that's it's a trickier pattern. Doing a wrist warmer is an easy way to start, and then a mitten after that. It is 6:45, and I don't have Greg. Give me 1 minute, and I'll see if I can beg Carl. Carl, you want to tell a story? No, don't do it then. Nope, he's busy and ill-prepared. So Greg will be here probably about 1:45. What if I have him make a 2-minute video and I post it to Instagram? As far as I know, he might be stuck with tunnel work too. He's got to go through a couple tunnels to get here. So, but he is coming by later this evening. He's also preparing for his mother's birthday tomorrow. Greg's mother is having a birthday tomorrow. What have you guys been doing this week, by the way? Like I said, we've been watching a lot of Netflix. I've been going through the whole Fargo series. I love it. It's Minnesota nice with the Minnesota dialect. And of course, it doesn't just take place in Minnesota. It's also Fargo. It's Kansas City, Missouri. It's just really messed up. And we pointed out, found something new. There's a lot of things that are very Minnesotan. One thing I didn't realize when I tell people things here. It takes me forever to get to the point. I'll start out with a long backstory and then get in, and I'll finally make my flipping point after about 5 minutes. We found out this is a Minnesota thing. It's not a me thing. It's a Minnesota thing that we tend to not ever get to the point. So that's something you'll see quite a bit of in that. You ask him about a murder scene and he'll tell you about the pancakes first. Turun's Craft Studio. I've actually been sewing a bunch, made a padded tufted message board with my friends for Christmas. Oh my God, Christmas. Who's making Christmas presents? I need to do that. And what are you making for Christmas presents? I like the board, by the way. That was a really good idea. Thing is, I have made so many hats as Christmas presents. I have to maybe change it up a bit because I don't think they've actually worn out from the ones I gave him 20 years ago. These ones are something I could do, I suppose. These things. Socks take a while. So if you get socks from me, it must really mean I love you because there's not very many of those. Also, they have to, socks are difficult because they have to fit to your foot. If the sock doesn't go over this part of your foot, with needle binding, you're never going to get them on. Those are not needle bound, by the way. These are knit. So what are you guys doing for Christmas presents if you're making them? I do like the, Allie Faden was making scarves using Virginia's pattern. Virginia's scarf pattern. You can find her on Instagram. That one, I think I could probably make some of those. It's basically a scarf where you do every row, but instead of cutting each row to have fringes, you loop it back like that. I think I need to do that, but check those out. That might be a fun way to use up yarn. I'm still stash busting. I have this much yarn left to go of my 448 grams. I have not been very productive lately, but I did make this one, which fits really well and is really thick. I'm wearing like my last episodes now. This is good. And then the hat, which is not done yet. Virginia has had a crash in work schedule because of the, yeah, I need to get her back here too. I'm looking all needle bound now. We changed our work hours due to winter, which means she is now working in the shop when we're here. And when she isn't, she has a series of days off in a row, and it's probably easier for her to travel than to hang around in Gudvangen where there's not very many people. So she says hello. But yes, I miss her too. It's weird not having her here, and the laughter and the giggle and the eyebrows. So hopefully we'll get her here soon. Until then, I'll just keep abusing who's ever nearest, which could be Greg, could be Carl. It is actually quite easy to make this scarf, and you can use whatever stitch you want to do. So I would suggest doing, I would try that one. That's a great way to use up yarn. Oh, thank you. Regina likes my mitts. This is the other one, but this one's made too big because they're for a guy. And no, it was the right way the first time. That's a guy with beefier hands than me that's getting these. But you can embroider on them like my other ones, for example, with a little spiral or something. But this one is, if you use really good yarn, it makes a difference. Because this one, the yarn, it's my mom's stash, and I don't know what yarn this is, but I'm pretty sure it's hand colored and it has a nice shine to it. This one is a Debbie Bliss yarn, but it's the Oslo Stitch that makes it look so texture changing color because of the way the light hits the stitch. That picture turned out 10 times better than I thought it would. And it was on the towel that I blocked it with. So this ugly towel with a bleach spot and everything, but somehow the light hit it just right and it turned out great. I need to fix my start though. See, we'll just turn that in the back. No one will ever know. The collar is in Oslo. Oslo. The first part of, let's write this real quick. Okay, so if you go onto that website and you find the video for Oslo Stitch, you'll see in the beginning of her video, she uses one loop or something behind the thumb and then does the turn thing. But later in the same video, then she'll use 2 loops. I did it the way she does in the first part. That's how this is. But look how flippin' thick this thing is. And the yarn was about slightly thicker than this. Slightly thicker than this, and I didn't realize, but that is so thick. So with Oslo, I would recommend using maybe something that thin. Might be better. But you can always make a little swatch and find out. But it is super dense. It's super thick. We will not freeze. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with it yet. But I like the edge on it. It makes a very cool finished edge. The other side looks like that. But it also wants to curl. Like when I was making it, it curls big time. It almost looks like it's waving when it's not, because you can lay it flat, but it'll still wave. So this is blocked. So I highly recommend steam blocking things. The way to do that is you take a wet cloth, you put it on top of your piece, preferably not wearing it at the time, but on an ironing board, might hurt. Then you take the iron and you just hold it up and down, and it'll push the steam from the cloth through the needle binding, and it makes it sit nice flat. It also makes your stitches look really, really even, especially if you have little bumps where it's joining. Really changes the look of things. But if there's something that is supposed to stretch and has a little stretch to it, when you block, steam block, you may remove that stretch. It might stay. A best example would be for knitting. If you had ribbed knitting on something and you blocked it, your ribbing is no longer stretchy. It's just big. So keep that in mind when blocking. Don't block anything that isn't supposed to stretch, or that is supposed to stretch. Don't block that. But most of needle binding doesn't stretch. I will tell Virginia, who said hello. I miss her. Things are darker here, but there's not very many people in Gudvangen right now, and I don't know if she's out visiting people or what. So mostly I have Greg and Carl keeping me company, and we're watching movies and crafting when we have daylight, because we're getting reduced daylight hours now. It gets dark at 4. And of course, I've been shifting my clock to a Corona schedule, so I have to start going to bed earlier again. So I'm almost out of time. Do you have any questions I can save up to, Greg, for next time? Because I should be able to get them out next week. I will be here on Saturday. Because of the soft kind of lockdown situation, it's not good for me to travel back and forth to east of Norway. So my kids, as long as they're still able to visit their friends, they'll stay with their fathers for this next week. So they have more time to visit instead of being stuck here in Gudvangen, where they can only visit people through the internet like we did the last lockdown. So I will be here on Saturday for sure. You're looking for children's books written in Norwegian for me to read. Oh, we have some in the shop. I will bring them next time. Kids' books in Norwegian. Has absolutely nothing to do with needle binding, but they're quite cool. And they have, they'll be Viking books. The Arboga Stitch is this one. It, like that. This yarn is really elusive. Right now the color is pretty much showing correctly, but sometimes it looks green. That's the Arboga stitch on the right side, or the side facing you as you bind. And this is Arboga on the wrong side. You can see my join there, sorry. I've been doing lazy joins because it's got merino in it. I'll show you this one day with a better yarn, how to do a lazy join. It basically means I have to sew those ends in later, but I don't have to sew them in, I just have to stick them underneath because it's a knot, so they're not going anywhere. Arboga is really pretty. Ingela Anderson on Instagram. I will find what her name is. She works a lot with the, she uses the Arboga stitch quite a bit. She also does squares in needle binding. That would be the things I would call her the master of. Nalbinding Ingela is her name on Instagram. Let's see. She's worth checking out. Arboga master. Arboga and square master. You'll see why when you check it out. No, but start with the Oslo Stitch, for example, or Mama Stitch. But use Oslo Stitch with a really thick yarn in the beginning, just so you can see where the loops are working, and then always stretch it as you do the chain, because it'll lock your stitches into place. That's another thing where you might think you're doing wrong and you're not. You just need to stretch it, and all the stitches go into place. because before you stretch it, it looks, wherever that little piece of yarn is I have. No, doesn't matter. Before you stretch it, it'll look really loopy. But when you stretch it, everything goes floop. Perfect. Oslo is good. If you only know Oslo, you can try, the next one you could try would be Mammen, because you're using 2 loops behind your thumb and 1 loop in front. So it's a little tighter. And the more loops you use behind your thumb, the thinner yarn you can use. And the more dense it will be. Next week, let's go Saturday. How's that sound? Hopefully I'll have the better background. We could go from the hotel. We'll see. Or maybe we'll put some of the pictures up. I was going to put the books in the background, but then the camera would have been down here and I would have been like this. So, yeah, well, at least, you have to watch on replay, but that's okay because you're going to be at Ren Fair. Oh, that's good. All events here are canceled. It's a unique year. Anyway, but if you have some questions, we will find Greg or something, or I'll get the story. I can try to tell you stories myself, but I'm not very good at it. But at least this time you got maybe a lot more needle binding and a little less Viking than normal, because lately it's been a lot more Viking and a little less needle binding due to light. So thank you for playing with me and keeping me company. I'm going to go watch the rest of Fargo now. It's so good. Okay, bye-bye. Ha det bra!